Ken, the Whitworth Pirates women's basketball team got a great measure of how far it's come on Friday night with a really good win at Pacific, ending a 11-game losing streak against the Boxers. And then on Saturday, they didn't go quite as well at Willamette. But tell us your takeaways from this weekend and what we're still doing to build as we go forward.
Yeah, third weekend split in a row now, and you want to turn those into sweeps. That's kind of the goal as you look forward to climbing up in the conference. And it was a thing for us, kind of like you mentioned, where when you talk about a best self, a performance on Friday kind of makes you have a little bit of a glimpse into that, of just when you put everything together. It's nice to be able to see the week of preparation and game plan, and just really it comes down to the players, and then being able to just show up and perform and setting the tone early with just making shots solves a lot. And that was kind of what we were able to do. And playing from ahead is something we haven't done a ton this year, so I was glad of the team's composure and poise in those moments. Being up 23 at half, getting down to about 17 or 18 in the third when they came out, kind of gave their best shot, us getting that lead back up to, I think, 27 halfway through the third, and weathering that storm, and then kind of like comfortably seeing that one out, and then turning things around to Saturday, looking to see how are we going to respond after an immediate win where we've had, wins the previous 2 Saturdays and then had to kind of sit on the win. How can we turn and respond to a little bit of success? And there was something where a good start on Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon, and then just kind of hit one of those lulls, unfortunately, that we weren't able to respond to. Had a little bit of foul trouble, which has kind of plagued us at some spots, and not to be able to keep that rhythm and continuity that we had. Had a good response in that third quarter, cutting it from, I believe, like 15 or 16 down to 10, and then missed some really good opportunities, I'd like to think, late in that second half of the third quarter, where you would have had a chance to get it down to 8 or 6 and put a little bit more game pressure. But I really, like you kind of mentioned, we need to take, and bottle up what we did on Friday. And not necessarily even like the defensive side, because if a team, has a tough shooting night, you can't always just expect to do that. But can we control the controllables on our end? And that's what we're going to be looking to do here tomorrow night and Friday.
For a team that's as young as ours, is it harder mentally or physically to sustain that higher level of play from one night to the next?
I mean, for me, it's a balance, I would say, because just like, how you handle success is more of the mental piece, because when things are going well, you're able to play a little harder and longer, so I think it's something where, I think we could have played all night on Friday, and on Saturday sometimes it feels like you're climbing uphill a little bit, when you're just feeling like sometimes shots aren't falling, or you're getting, unlucky in some instances. But I think it's something where it all just comes with growth. It's not enough to just get older, you have to get older and better. So I think as we've gone through this year, it hasn't just been experience that we're gaining, it's also been confidence, because players have just developed a ton. I always tell them, as soon as you get to, conference and post-New Year, everyone's essentially a year older in their season, just because that, 3 or 4 months that they've had has really been productive for us. So I think it's something where, you take that confidence from Friday and you take the learning from Saturday, and we need to build on that, going into this week and try to replicate what we saw Friday.
This week is no secret to anybody, a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Hosting Whitman, defending champion, and always a really good program on Tuesday. And then Friday hosting first place Linfield. Both of these teams, other than that first quarter at Linfield, both of these teams seem to take it to us when we played down there 4 weeks ago. Talk about how excited this team is to get back and see how they measure up in their 4 weeks later, and what these teams do that make it really challenging.
Yeah, for us, when you go back to this past weekend and looking back at, how we hosted those two teams in Pacific and Willamette, and then how we were able to respond, down there, I think that's a sign, hopefully, of more good things to come, when it's like, well, now we host those two teams. And in conference, everybody knows each other, so it's something where you have to respond, like you mentioned, to not only the physical adjustments that the game is going to provide, but mentally, what's your approach? And I think that's the thing when you look at the film of those two teams, like you mentioned, Whitman's success last year, Linfield also, and then them having a great season so far in conference, especially, where for them, what's the big difference to me? It's the mental will and want to of just overcoming and feeling comfortable in those situations when they do face a little bit of adversity. With Whitman being kind of seesaw back and forth in that third quarter at Willamette, then they open up on like an 11-0 run, and the fourth was like the difference in that game. And then Linfield, like you mentioned with us down there, they just kind of stay the course and don't get rattled. They're very poised in the backcourt where all games really start and end is can you take care of the ball and just manage the game. And I think that's something where it'll be important for us and our guards to set the tone and get a control of the game. And just looking back at both of those ball games where obviously they're going to present different challenges with versatile lineups and how they like to play on both ends, but also for us, can we just respond and meet the challenges? Like you mentioned, just because we had success early against Linfield at their place doesn't mean we'll have a great first quarter again. Like we have to earn again those first quarter successes. And then with Whitman, that would be the number key 1, 2, and 3 is just get off to a solid start. You can only allow them one shot. They're going to make shots. They're a talented team. Can't allow them to kill you on the offensive boards and get multiple shots and put them at the foul line, because that was what really got us down early, and then we just had to crawl and climb back from that, which we don't want to be in that spot again.